You are carrying a heavy silence right now, the kind of quiet that feels loud inside your own head. You made the choice to step back, to stop responding, to protect what was left of your peace, and yet the weight has not lifted. It has shifted. You lie awake wondering if you did the right thing, if you were too harsh, if they miss you, or if you were the one who made everything fall apart. You replay conversations in your mind, searching for the exact moment things went wrong, trying to find the missing piece that would finally make it all make sense. That exhaustion is real. It is not weakness. It is the natural aftermath of giving your energy to someone who could not hold it with care. You need to hear this clearly before anything else. You were not the problem. The confusion you feel is not a sign that you are broken or that you failed to love correctly. It is the result of being placed in an uneven dynamic where your empathy was treated as a resource, where your patience was mistaken for permission, and where your silence was interpreted as a challenge rather than a boundary. When you choose no contact, you are not punishing anyone. You are simply removing yourself from a pattern that required your constant emotional labor to keep running. The fatigue you carry comes from trying to stabilize something that was never meant to be stable. What you experienced was not a balanced relationship. It was a system that relied on your responsiveness to maintain itself. And now that you have stepped away, the system is searching for a way to pull you back in. That is why the quiet feels so heavy. It is not empty. It is waiting. But it is waiting for something specific. Understanding what that is will help you see through the noise, recognize the mechanics at play, and finally, rest your mind. When someone relies on external validation to regulate their own sense of worth, the absence of that validation creates a psychological vacuum. No contact disrupts the flow of emotional supply they have grown accustomed to receiving from you. This is not about love or longing in the way you understand it. It is about control, predictability, and the fear of losing influence. During this period of distance, there are certain responses they secretly crave from you. These cravings are not conscious requests. They are automatic psychological needs tied to how they maintain their internal equilibrium. They do not need your presence to survive. They need your attention to feel anchored. They need your emotional reactions to confirm they still matter. They need your guilt to avoid facing their own patterns. Recognizing these desires is not about giving them power.
It is about removing the mystery from their behavior. When you see what they are actually looking for, you stop wondering why you feel so drained and start understanding why your calmness is the most disruptive thing you can offer. What follows is a clear breakdown of what they are quietly waiting for, why it happens, and how it has shaped your experience. This is not meant to keep you focused on them. It is meant to free you from the need to figure them out. You do not need to solve their puzzle. You only need to understand the pieces so you can stop handing them over. The first thing they crave is your attention. Not your love, not your time, but your focus. Even when they appear indifferent, the silence is measured. They watch for signs that you are still tracking them. They check to see if you are watching their movements, reading their updates, or wondering about their day. This happens because attention confirms existence. When you are the consistent source of someone's emotional gravity, your withdrawal creates a void. They do not miss the connection. They miss the certainty that they were still the center of your world. Psychologically, this is about maintaining relevance. If you are no longer looking, they have to face the fact that their influence is fading. For you, this craving has meant living with a low hum of surveillance in your own mind. You have caught yourself checking their profile, asking friends how they are doing, or rehearsing what you would say if they reached out. You have carried the mental load of keeping tabs on someone
who should no longer occupy your thoughts. That habit is not a flaw. It is a conditioned response. Your nervous system was trained to monitor their state because your safety once depended on reading their mood. Now that you are safe, your brain still scans the horizon. But scanning does not mean you owe them your focus. Attention is a choice. Every time you direct it elsewhere, you reclaim a piece of your mental energy. You do not need to prove you have moved on by announcing it. You simply need to stop feeding the pattern. Your life is happening elsewhere. Let it. The second thing they crave is your emotional reaction. They are not looking for calm updates or polite distance. They are waiting for proof that they still affect you. A burst of anger, a message filled with hurt, a sudden apology, or even a carefully crafted post that hints at your pain. Any strong emotion serves as confirmation that they still hold weight in your internal world. This craving stems from a need for control. When someone cannot regulate their own emotions internally, they rely on external triggers to feel grounded.
Your reaction becomes their mirror. If you react, they know they still have a lever to pull. If you do not, the lever goes slack. For you, this has meant carrying the exhausting weight of emotional management. You have spent months or years trying to modulate your responses, soften your tone, or suppress your frustration, just to keep the peace. You learned to swallow your truth to avoid triggering conflict. You blamed yourself for being too sensitive or too difficult, when in reality, you were simply responding to an environment that demanded constant adjustment. That training does not disappear overnight, but you can see it for what it is. You were not overreacting. You were responding to a system that required your instability to validate their control. When you choose not to give them that reaction, you are not being cold. You are being consistent. Calm detachment is not a weapon. It is a boundary. It tells your nervous system that you no longer need to perform for survival. The third thing they crave is your guilt. They want you to carry the weight of the separation. They want you to believe that your boundaries were unfair, that your silence was cruel, that walking away was an overreaction. This craving exists because guilt is a powerful shield against shame. When someone cannot sit with their own responsibility, they redirect it. They project their discomfort onto you so they do not have to face it. If you feel guilty, they feel justified. If you question your choices, their choices remain unexamined. This dynamic has kept you trapped in a loop of self-doubt. You have replayed every argument, every missed call, every moment you could have handled differently. You have wondered if you should have tried harder, if you should have explained yourself one more time, if you failed to give them the chance to change. That wondering is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of empathy. But empathy without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. You were asked to carry accountability for a pattern you did not create. You were expected to fix a fracture that required mutual effort. The guilt they crave is not yours to hold. When you release it, you are not being selfish, you are being accurate. You can acknowledge that relationships end and that missteps happen, without accepting blame for a dynamic that was fundamentally unbalanced. Your peace does not require you to apologize for protecting yourself. The fourth thing they crave is your hope. Not your despair, not your anger, but the quiet belief that things might still work out. They want you to keep the door slightly open. They want you to wait, to wonder, to leave room for a return. This craving is rooted in fear of finality. When someone relies on external validation, the idea of permanent distance feels like erasure. They do not necessarily want to fix things. They want the option to remain available. Hope keeps you tethered.
It keeps you scanning for signs, interpreting silence as a pause, and treating distance as temporary. For you, this has meant living in a state of emotional suspension. You have delayed decisions, postponed closure, and held back from fully investing in your own life because a small part of you was still waiting for resolution. That waiting is exhausting. It drains your present to fund a future that may never arrive. Hope becomes harmful when it is directed towards someone who has shown you they cannot meet you with consistency. Recognizing this craving does not mean you become cynical. It means you become realistic. You can hold compassion without holding space. You can acknowledge the past without financing it with your future. Closing the door is not an act of punishment. It is an act of clarity. You are not shutting someone out. You are making room for yourself. The fifth thing they crave is your information. They want to know how you are doing, who you are spending time with, what you are working on, whether you have moved forward or fallen apart. They do not need to ask you directly. They will use mutual connections, social media, or subtle probes to gather what they need. This craving is about maintaining influence. Information is control. When someone knows your movements, they can anticipate your needs, your vulnerabilities, your triggers. It keeps them psychologically present even when they are physically absent. For you, this has meant feeling watched long after you thought you were free. You have adjusted your behavior, censored your updates, or avoided certain places because you knew they might find out. You have carried the mental burden of managing your visibility, treating your own life like something that needed to be hidden or curated. That is not how peace works. Your life does not require editing to be safe. The need to control what they know about you is a leftover reflex from a time when your privacy was not respected. You do not need to hide your growth. You do not need to perform your healing. You simply need to stop treating your life as a broadcast. Information is yours to share and yours to keep. When you stop feeding the surveillance loop, you reclaim your narrative. You are not disappearing. You are living. And living does not require an audience. The sixth thing they crave is your identity. They want your confidence, your clarity, your sense of self, your emotional stability. Not because they want to celebrate it, but because they lack it internally. When someone struggles with a fragmented sense of worth, they look outward to find pieces they can absorb. Your strength becomes their reference point. Your boundaries become their challenge. Your independence becomes their threat. They do not want to watch you thrive from a distance. They want to know that your light still flickers in their direction, because as long as it does, they feel connected to it. This dynamic has left you feeling hollow at times, as if your sense of self was slowly diluted by the need to adapt, to adjust, to shrink. You may have noticed that the more you gave, the less you recognized yourself. That is not coincidence. It is the natural result of living in a space where your authenticity was treated as negotiable. You were asked to trade pieces of yourself for peace. But peace built on self-abandonment is not peace. It is exhaustion. Reclaiming your identity does not require grand declarations. It requires small, consistent choices. Saying no without over-explaining. Resting without guilt. Pursuing what feels true to you without checking how it will be received. Your identity was never theirs to manage. It was always yours to return to. Every time you choose yourself, you rebuild the foundation that was slowly worn away. The seventh thing they crave is your mental preoccupation. They want you to keep thinking about them. They want your mind to remain occupied with their actions, their words, their silence, their possible return. This craving is about psychological ownership. As long as you are analyzing them, they occupy real estate in your mind. They do not need your physical presence to maintain influence. They only need your focus. Your overthinking becomes their anchor. Your confusion becomes their proof that they still matter. For you, this has meant living with a crowded mind. You have replayed conversations, dissected motives, searched for hidden meanings, and tried to solve a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. You have mistaken exhaustion for progress, believing that if you just figure it out, the pain will stop. But the pain does not stop through analysis. It stops through release. Understanding why they act the way they do does not heal you. Choosing to stop carrying their weight does. Mental preoccupation is a form of emotional labor. It is work that benefits no one but the pattern. When you step back from trying to decode them, you are not being dismissive. You are being protective. You are acknowledging that some questions do not have answers, and that is okay. Closure does not always come from outside. Sometimes it comes from deciding that the question no longer deserves your energy. Your mind is your home. You get to decide who lives there. Seeing these 7 cravings clearly changes everything. It removes the mystery. It strips away the fantasy that their behavior is about love or longing or genuine remorse. It shows you the mechanics of a system that was never designed for mutual care. Recognizing these patterns is not about keeping score. It is about stepping back emotionally and gaining clarity. You no longer need to wonder why they reach out, why they pull back, why they test your boundaries, or why they seem to disappear, only to reappear when you start to heal. You already know what they are looking for. They are looking for a reaction, a response, a piece of you to hold on to, and you no longer have to give it. Awareness does not mean you become cold or detached from your own humanity. It means you become accurate about where your energy belongs. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You stop waiting for apologies that will never come. You stop measuring your worth by their inability to see it. Clarity is quiet. It does not shout. It simply settles. When you stop feeding the pattern loses its grip. You are not breaking them. You are freeing yourself. And that is exactly how it should work. From this place of clarity, empowerment becomes simple. It does not require grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It requires consistent boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built out of anger. They are lines drawn out of self-respect. They are the quiet understanding that you will no longer participate in your own depletion. Calm detachment is not indifference. It is emotional regulation. It is the ability to observe a trigger without becoming it. It is knowing that you can feel pain without handing it back to the person who caused it. When you hold this line, you are not punishing anyone. You are protecting your peace. You are teaching your nervous system that safety is no longer conditional. You are proving to yourself that you can survive without their approval, without their validation, without their presence. Self-respect grows in the space where you stop negotiating with your own worth. It grows when you choose silence over explanation, distance over drama, and truth over convenience. You do not need to announce your boundaries to enforce them. You only need to live them. Every time you choose yourself, you reinforce a new pattern. Every time you step back from the old dynamic, you make room for a healthier one. You are not losing them. You are finding yourself. And that is a fair trade. Healing does not happen all at once. It happens in small, steady moments. It happens when you wake up and do not immediately check your phone. It happens when a memory surfaces and you let it pass without building a story around it. It happens when you realize you have gone days without wondering what they are doing, and you feel relief instead of guilt. That relief is real. It is the sound of your nervous system finally exhaling. You do not need to rush it. You do not need to prove it. You only need to keep choosing peace, even when it feels unfamiliar. The past does not disappear, but it loses its grip. The confusion fades. The exhaustion lifts. What remains is clarity, strength, and the quiet certainty that you made the right choice. You were never the problem. You were simply caught in a dynamic that required too much of you. Now you are free to give that energy back to yourself. Move forward without looking back. Trust your boundaries. Honor your peace. Your life is waiting for you, and it is yours to live.